Hello, folks. This is Pastor Winston. We are in episode 23. Jesus is true and better. So let's kind of dive in here. We'll take a look. I'm going to diminish myself in order that he might increase. And what you see in front of you is episode 23. We're calling it Out of Egypt. So you could kind of see the pilgrims coming out of Egypt. It's Exodus. It's the whole story is Exodus 14, 19 through 31, but we're only going to cover 19 through 22, I think it is today. And because, this is an old story, right? And it's been told in Sunday school over and over again. It's part of our culture, who we are. But sometimes it's helpful in Scripture to take it real slow and see what it might reveal. And so there's a couple of things that popped up and made me kind of shorten this. I want to share them with you. So let's move on to the next slide here. And it starts out by just saying, then the angel of God was going before Israel. So you see here this cloud over here, the pillar of fire and cloud that's leading the Israelites through the desert. They've had about a day's march as they go, and they're proceeding to a place where they can camp. They're pretty exhausted. Reports are that there's upwards of about 2 million people in this march, so they don't move that fast. And so keep that in mind as we proceed to the next slide here. So the text teaches us, and the pillar of cloud moved from before them and stood behind them, coming between the host of Egypt and the host of Israel. And there was the cloud and the darkness. And it lit up the night without one coming near the other all night. So this is really sort of interesting right here, because this day's march had kind of put the Israelites in a suicidal position. They were between the desert, the sea, and Pharaoh, evil. And they were trapped. And yet they could look back and they could see this army gaining ground on them, just advancing. It was the advance army of the Pharaoh with his chariots and the like. And they're just completely losing heart. Well, have you ever been there? Have you ever felt like you were really trapped? We had a situation in our Christian bookstore in 2008, in which we discovered that someone had been embezzling us for over $200,000, and we had to take out this huge line of credit with a bank who was really great to work with us, and so we sort of took the deep blue sea on this one, and it we plodded along, and the end result was that 12 years later, we paid off that line of credit. We made our last payment, and it was something else. It was so freeing, and it was so delightful, and we owed it all to God. It was His providence that made it possible. While Christian bookstores were folding all around us and all over the nation, God made it possible for us to continue and to be able to pay off that debt. So that's kind of my story. And I know your stories can differ a lot, but I want to promise you that God is faithful, and He will protect you, and He will guide you through it. So maybe you've been there. You feel like you're between the devil and the deep blue sea, right? Well, I'm going to tell you, take the deep blue sea. That's a better route altogether. And so here's the army. They're coming full speed. And they'd soon be in the midst. They know they're going to be on us in a minute, and they're going to be in our midst, and they're just going to be wreaking havoc, and they're going to be killing people, and it's just going to be a slaughter. But Moses alone keeps his faith during this time. He keeps his head about him, and God promises him deliverance and actually gives him the power to deliver the people. And so you can see this picture. It's kind of cool. I found it online. And, there's one side's all the cloud and the darkness, and the other side's the light. And that's kind of what's happening with the Israelites. So they're getting the light so they can break camp, without being crazy or panicked, because they know that God is their rear guard. He's been their rear guard, and he's taking care of them in every way. As he promises in his word, I will not let you go out in haste, but I will go before you, and I will save you. I'll go with you. I'll be your rear guard. And that's Isaiah 52:12. And so think about that promise of the Lord. That was that verse from Isaiah really encouraged Dolores and I when we went through our situation. And so we're going to move on a little bit here and see what the Lord has in mind for us now. And so then Moses stretched out his hand. Oh, let me go back here. I forgot this one slide. This is talking about divine revelation or the divine presence. When people sense that and they have an experience with that, McLaren says this is either light or darkness to men. This is his divine presence, either a great light or it's darkness. We kind of see it right here, according to the use that they make of it. There's the ark, which slew the Philistines, and that's a hilarious story. No, the Philistines don't want this ark, and they keep passing it to everybody, and bad things are happening. But yet, it brought blessing to the house of Obed-Edom. And so David ends up giving it to Obed-Edom because he doesn't want to bring it into Jerusalem because he's sort of afraid of himself, I think. But anyway, it becomes a blessing. So there's a darkness to this side, and there's a light of divine revelation. There was the child set up for the fall. We know who that is, Jesus Christ. But also for the blessing of many. And it's the same fire that melts wax, it hardens clay. The gospel of salvation and destruction for life unto life and death unto death. God is to each of us either joy or our dread. So the Israelites make their way as they break camp and move towards the sea. And this is really the first provision that the Lord provides here in a big way, is to give them this break, this rest after this long day's march, so that they can camp and then recover and begin early to head towards the sea. You have to just wonder about that pillar. It's darkness surrounded the Egyptians. They couldn't even see. They didn't even know where they couldn't. The road ahead, they were actually paralyzed. They were stopped in their tracks. So moving along to our next slide here, we read, then Moses, this is God's given him command, and he's given him power. He says, stretch out your hand over the sea. Moses, stretch out your hand. And then Moses stretches out his hand over the sea. And the Lord drove back the sea by a strong east wind all night. Now listen, what happened was that wind blew the water opposite itself to open the land bridge for them to walk over. And the wind dried the land. And the waters were divided. And the people of Israel went into the midst of the sea on dry ground, the waters being a wall to them on their right hand and on their left. And don't you know that was scary? That was pretty frightening to look at that wall of water. You've seen pictures of that before. But you got 2 million people crossing on that land bridge to the other side. That's definitely a miracle. What is this idea of miracles? McLaren, and I'm going to close with this because it's just beautiful the way he puts this. The picture of the crossing carries eternal truth for us all. The way of safety does not open until we are hemmed in, and Pharaoh's chariots have almost caught up. It often leads us into the very thick of what we deem or we think are perils. It often has to be ventured on in the dark and with the wind in our faces. But if we tread it in faith, the fluid will be made solid and the pathless passable, or any other apparent impossibility be realized before our confidence shall be put to shame. Or the evil one will reach, even the evil one will reach us, because he'll be put to shame also. Think about it. When you're between the devil and the blue sea, deep blue sea, take the sea. God bless you. And I just want you to have a great week.